Hey, Susie. So we have Oreo and Elvis. Who's Elvis? Who's Oreo?
So
And
we've got, oh,
before
sorry.
you start, I'm just reminding viewers that they can ask questions about Elvis and Oreo in the chat, in the Q&A. Okay, who's who
Great.
and what's what?
Okay, so we have Elvis, who's more in the foreground here. He's kind of almost off screen. I can maybe do a little here. He's moving around a little bit. And then that's Oreo in the background. Spreading, oh, they're both doing a little stretch. They were kind of taking a little nap there.
And now they're waking up.
Yeah.
I can see when Oreo stretches his neck that
Yeah.
he's got some plucked areas.
Well,
some featherless areas. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
you mean Elvis in the
Elvis,
front? Well,
sorry.
yeah, Elvis. That's okay. Yes, he came to us this way. He actually, I'm not sure exactly what happened with whether he was self-plucking or whether his companion here, Oreo, was plucking him. But this is who he is now, and he's had a little bit of face regrowth since I've had him since in December. But there's no active plucking that's happening now. I never see any feathers in the bottom of the cage. So that's a good sign, but it's possible he has follicle damage and may never regrow his little collar. I like to refer to him as our little turkey vulture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did he come to Mickaboo?
He was surrendered by his owner with Oreo because they're a bonded pair. He was surrendered because he had a pretty significant eye infection. And he went to a foster mom prior to me who really rehabbed him very well. And then he came to me in December. We still had a little round of some antibiotics and some eye drops to administer. That went on for about 6 weeks or so, but we're currently done with that. And so it's going to be a little bit of monitoring. I think he's maybe susceptible to having infection in that eye. I have to kind of keep an eye on, no pun intended, on his like feather growth, and sometimes it can get toward the eye, and so I have to maybe give him a little hot compress and make sure that those feathers get away from that eye area. But other than that, that's kind of the medical care that we're administering at the moment.
So I'm guessing that's the eye on the far side, the right side.
Yes, you can't see it now. The eye that we're seeing now was not susceptible to the did not have the infection, but this is the eye. He does have a cataract, and he's bye Oreo, come on, go back up, go on. Go on. Oh yeah, he's okay. We may have lost Oreo for a minute.
We're talking about Elvis right now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, so he is probably blind in that eye. And so he has vision impairment, but he's not totally blind. He does respond to some visual cues, but you can kind of tell when he walks around that he's got some blind spots that he can't see too well.
So you've mentioned a couple things that I really want to follow up on. And the first, which is probably the shortest, is that you mentioned that Elvis and Oreo are a bonded pair. That means just like we humans, birds, parrots form very, very strong bonds. And so these two would need to be adopted together and kept together as a pair.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's a really important thing. You also, with him being blind, is he considered a special needs bird? You mentioned that sometimes you might need to do compresses, and he has needed meds in the past.
Yeah, I guess I would say that, yes, he does. And I also feel that his cage configuration is something that would either need to be kept as it is or reconfigured in a very similar way, because you can't really see them because the camera's fixed. But there's like little ramps and levels and things that are all kind of, rigged together for him. And so I do think it would be kind of kind to him to keep a cage in the similar fashion. Yeah, but he does get around, he gets about, he's really fun and sociable, and, he loves his little companion, Oreo, and they have a lot of fun together, and they sing to each other. And, he likes to get actually outside the cage, and we've just recently discovered a new plane of existence, which is the floor. And so that's been really exciting. And he likes to go on the floor, and Oreo will join him. And, they just kind of check it out for a little bit, and then they're ready to go back in the cage. So it's quite nice. Yeah.
And of course, when they're on the floor, there are no other pets around.
No other pets around. Yeah, for sure.
I do want to make the point with special needs birds, because we recognize that there are going to be, more care and more medical fees, that Mickaboo waives the adoption fee for special needs birds. So that's just a nice touch. About how old are these two?
They're both probably similarly in their like 18 to 21 range, I think, is what it was assessed at, something like that.
So
And cockatiels can live up to like approximately like 30, I think is kind of the oldest that we know of, I guess, right? Um,
yeah, about
so
that.
yeah, so I would consider them to be kind of senior, but they still have a little pep in their walk,
Right.
so to speak. Yeah.
Do either of them fly? I'm guessing
Yeah.
Elvis doesn't with the vision.
No, yeah. Oreo is flighted and he likes to come to the top of the cage. I'm going to do, if you don't mind, a little bit of an adjustment. Forgive the camera movement a minute. If we can don't know if we can get a picture of Oreo who's moved. Yeah, so he'll come to the top of the cage and he will do like some really organized circular flights around my apartment. And then he goes straight back to the cage. So it's pretty good. It feels very comfortable. He's a little bit more wild in my mind. He's not really too happy with stepping up on my hand, although in the last week we have made a little bit of progress. So I've had like 3 little step ups, which is really exciting. And I do feel like it's definitely going to happen. It's just in his time, and we just have some patience. So it hasn't been that long that they've been with me. I mean, it's only been since December.
Right.
Yeah. So I consider that good progress. Although it's definitely trying on the patience, but it's like nature just kind of tells you like who's in charge, and these birds are in charge of what they're going to do. And we've made a lot of progress, and we're going to get there. Or his next people will get there with them.
It's a really good point that you raise. You can't really force birds to do stuff, at least not, and maintain a good relationship with the bird and keep the bird emotionally well and happy. So you mentioned that Oreo is learning to step up. I take it, so Elvis does step up?
Well, he steps up. I kind of call it stepping back. And I don't know if that's just because of his vision issue. He doesn't get as too upset with my hand. But if I come in from behind him, he will get on my hand. And so then he'll stay on the hand. He seems to be pretty comfortable with it. And then he loves getting up on my shoulder. And so we do a little, he joins me in my work Zoom meetings, and everybody loves to see him. And he seems quite content with that. In fact, he doesn't really want to come off of my shoulder. It's Oreo who gets more upset that Elvis is away from him because they're bonded, of course.
Right. He's a very sweet bird.
Yeah, he is really sweet.
What do they eat, and what are some of their favorite foods?
Yeah, they eat. I have a little mixture of like brown rice and quinoa that I give them a little tiny bit with their pellets and some seed, and then I mix it with just a variety of vegetables and a tiny bit of fruit. They didn't really seem to care so much for fruit, but and then for treats they get some millet and some nuts, that they will eat from my hand. So that was also a nice progress to make, because that wasn't happening when they first came to me. So another example of their kind of slow but sure, right, acceptance of humans.
Neat. Now you mentioned giving Elvis, putting compresses on his eye. What is that like? How do you do that?
Yeah, I just pick him up from behind with a towel. So I just kind of come at him with the towel. He seems to fuss a little bit about that, but then as soon as he gets kind of swaddled in it, he's really kind of calms down. And I take a warm wash rag and I just press it against his eye to let him get wet, or maybe I'll give him a little spritz beforehand to kind of get the feathers wet so I can kind of move them, manipulate them. And then in fact, then I can take the time to sort of like just see what's going on, make sure there's no like crustiness or something that's happening. And I have to say, I think he gets relaxed around it. It's kind of like a little bit of a bonding moment too, sort of the way he and Oreo behave when they're doing their own preening with each other. So it's kind of sweet, but I don't want to do it too often for him because I don't, I think the initial picking up can be a little traumatic, but I just, want to kind of keep him healthy. So, yeah.
Can you show us a little bit some of the ramps that are special for these older birds?
Yeah, hold on, I can't really see the camera now. So there we go. So you can see
it.
Yeah.
Ramp over some wheatgrass.
Ramp one. There's some
2 ramps.
Yeah, there's a couple of ramps, and then there's some ladders. And they, it took a little hot minute for them to get accustomed to each of the little ladders that I added. And they actually have a ladder on the outside of the cage that gets into the floor that they sort of ignored for several weeks. And then now they love it. And it's also made of wood, which is another thing that they really like to kind of just chew at a little bit.
Perfect. Just hold the camera still now.
Yeah.
Yep.
How's that looking? Okay.
Great.
Okay, good.
so we talked about the ramps. Now, Elvis's chest is plucked in addition to his throat. So in the last
Mhm.
few minutes, you talked about his crop last time we talked, last time
Yeah.
we spoke. And that sounds like it would be something that would be helpful for a potential adopter to know.
Well, yeah, you just basically can see after he's eaten that it looks a little bit more puffy, and you can see actual seeds through it. It's really kind of fascinating. And I know that, if it's, I obviously can monitor whether he's had a good dinner, has had plenty to eat. And I also feel like I don't really want to handle him too much if he's got a really full crop. That's just my own instinct. So I just sort of leave him alone when that's the case. But yeah, it's kind of a nice little health, benefit to kind of monitor how he's getting fed.
Nice.
Hmm.
So in our last few minutes, anything else you would like to add about Elvis and Oreo and
Yeah.
what potential adopters might want to know?
Yeah, I mean, we really have a lot of fun together. They love to be like, I sing to them, I whistle to them, we play music. They love it if I get kind of like, they would love it if I did an interpretive dance around their cage all the time. They really respond to that and will do their like stretches. I do Pilates online, and so they get excited when that happens. And I think they really just love the activity. They love being talked to. They get, they're excited to see that something is going on. Like, obviously, I was standing still waiting for us to have this interview, and we were all very quiet, and they sort of took a nap. And now, now there's a little bit of talking, and they're excited, and they're moving around. And, I really enjoy having them around. But you can see Oreo just bobbed his head a little bit. He will do some dancing from time to time. And Elvis is our little crooner, true to his name. I'm trying to teach him how to sing Love Me Tender, and it's not working, but it's okay. He sings other things that are sort of undecipherable. And they do some talking too. So the prior foster mom told me that, in the mornings you hear one of them saying something like, "How you doing, Elvis? How you doing, Elvis?" And I didn't hear that for the longest time. And I thought, well, that's not really happening. And then just the other day I heard it. So there's a little bit of, and I think it might be Elvis talking to himself, quite frankly. It's a lot of fun. I just really get a kick out of hearing them do their little chatter and their singing. So, and it's been a slow but steady growth for sure.
That's how it is with birds.
Yep.
Susie, thank you so much for sharing them. They're so sweet. And
Thank you.
yeah, hopefully someone is on the call saying, "Wow, yeah, I'd love to have a mellow pair of older cockatiels. Give them a good
Yeah.